What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Quarters Podcast. We got a special episode today. We are going on YouTube for this NFL Mock Draft 2025 draft, plus the podcast. So if you're watching on YouTube, download the podcast. You can find a description below. We're going to be doing draft coverage all year, all season long, getting you ready for that. But today, we're doing our first 2025 NFL mock draft. We're ready to piss off all the fan bases because that's what we're going to do on the show today. And we'll dive into it after the intro. All right. Like I said, we're going 2025 mock. We're going to be talking about these guys and what we have for them. We're going off of RotoWire Super Bowl odds because right now with the records, everything out there, it's hard to project what that's going like. But we took their Super Bowl odds in week 4. We said, all right, how do we combine this to make this as fair as possible? I got the first pick, and we had the Panthers here sitting there. But, hey, you know what? They've been playing pretty well lately. I don't know if they're going to be at that 101. We'll see how it goes. But I took Travis Hunter, and I know that when you're looking at the Panthers overall and like what are their needs, everything, like just everything. When you're just looking at the roster, they need as much talent as possible. And I know a quarterback might be mocked here a lot, but it's hard for me to really pick a 2025 quarterback that I'm comfortable taking. And when you're looking at what Dalton's done for the Panthers, it's like maybe they can just go find a plug and play guy like Baker Mayfield, right? There's some of those guys where they can be competitive enough to kind of go. I say take the best player. And I think Travis Hunter, with what he's been able to do, I mean, he's a Heisman, I don't want to say front runner, but he's right there, top 3 with him, Ashton Genty, and Jalen Milroe, and just how talented he is. You take the best player on the board, right? And I think that if they're in this position, a team really wants to trade up, maybe they move back. But if they're standing pat, they take Travis Hunter. What is he? He's a football player, as the old school guys used to talk about. He can play on both sides. I think he's a better corner, in my opinion. But if you can use him in that corner role, and he can give you some reps at wide receiver in this offense, especially with Dave Canales, I love him as an offensive play caller. You've seen what he's been able to do with Bryce Young being benched in that offense. So I'll take Travis Hunter here. I think I like the idea of just taking best player available. Panthers need talent, and you take a guy like this. You just figure it out after that. Christian, right move, wrong move? What would you have done with this pick?
Well, first, I want to acknowledge your go get a plug and play guy like Baker Mayfield. It's really hilarious that the best option that's probably going to be on the market is Sam Darnold, who also was a Carolina Panther at one point in time. But no, I get it. I don't think the Panthers are really in a good position to take a quarterback. I do think while they've played well, I think we're going to start to see some of their roster holes even more so down the stretch here. And so I don't think that now is the time to really go after that quarterback when we've seen, and they keep saying that they're still hoping that Bryce Young can be a starter at some point. I don't necessarily know if that's there, but Travis Hunter is the best player in college football, probably. And I totally agree that when you have a player that is this dynamic, you kind of have to at least consider it in the top 1, 2, or 3. I think 3 is probably his floor at this point.
Yeah, and with this draft class, you can take an upside quarterback in the second round. Mm-hmm. I believe they have the Rams pick, not their own, but still.
Yeah. Hey, these guys got something because they haven't had a lot of picks lately, so they're going to have to add to that talent and get to that room. All right, Randy, you had the second pick. I'm interested to see where you go with this pick here. What you feeling here?
Obviously YouTube can see it's Carson Beck, the quarterback from Georgia, which is becoming less and less my favorite thing as these weeks go on. Obviously, first half Carson Beck this week was atrocious. Second half was good until he threw 2 jump balls at the end of the game and almost cost him. The first one could have been pass interference, sticky-tacky. Then the second one actually cost him with a pick. The Giants, at this point, if you're going to be picking second, Daniel Jones is out, just plain and simple. Yeah. I think you go with a new quarterback. Carson Beck seems like a safe choice. He seems a little bit gun-shy and just not fully what he should be right now. I think he needs to get his confidence fully back up. But I personally would rather go Quinn Ewers, but with the injury history he's had so far, I think it's a little bit tough. Maybe he slips an extra pick. I think he would have slipped a little bit more, but I understand why Christian went there. But Carson Beck, a very good quarterback. everyone's favorite to be the first quarterback currently. I do think he has a lot of talent and some upside. I think in this offensive system with another weapon as well, I think Carson Beck could really thrive for the Giants.
I'm glad you brought that up. 2023 version of Carson Beck was significantly better than what we've seen in 2024. And so I think you kind of have to weed through what's real and what's not. Last year when he had Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey, he was firing the ball over the middle of the field into coverage, but in safe ways and with anticipation and all the things that you need to play quarterback at the NFL level. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's trust in his receivers, if it's just not trusting his eyes anymore. He just hasn't really played up to par. But I do think, when you look across industry mocks, he's still in this range. I personally don't think he's played up to this standard yet this year, but it's a long season and Georgia's probably going to be in the playoff. So we have an even longer season for Carson Beck. A lot of scouting left to be done here.
Yeah, I mean, I want to rib Randy as much as I want, but the quarterback class it's a question mark for a lot of different areas there. And I think with the Giants, if you're picking this high, you take a quarterback. Now, who's that going to be? That's really dependent. But I will say this: Carson Beck, anytime we do a Devy podcast with, he talked about this the other day when I was on the pod with him. They lost a lot of weapons on Georgia too. Brock and those guys being out, that's a big deal. And if you have Neighbors, he makes anybody look good. He's making Daniel Jones look kind of good. And so if you have Malik Neighbors there, I think he fits Beck downfield, pushing the ball, those type of things. That could be interesting. And again, it's really the staff that makes the quarterback. We found that we know this now. Like the staff's going to make that. If it's the ball there, can he do that there? But let's talk about your man crush, Christian. Who are you taking at 3 for the Titans?
I'm going to take Quinn Ewers. For those that are watching on YouTube, you've seen this for a while, and you're probably like, Quinn Ewers in the top 3? Yes, I do believe that. If you watch what obviously Arch Manning came in when Quinn Ewers has been injured, and Arch Manning has played really well, but Quinn Ewers takes this offense to a different level. He has a full mastery of what Sark is trying to run there. And I think there are some similarities between what Sark is running in Texas and what the Callahan is running in Tennessee. Quinn Ewers is more, he's safer with the football than Will Levis. And once again, similar to the Giants situation, if the Titans are picking top 3, then it means that Will Levis wasn't good enough. And I think that this staff will be quick to pull the plug on that, just based on the fact that they're screaming at him every week for doing stupid things. So he did get injured in Monday Night Football. So I don't know if he's back in, or we'll see. We're recording this during it. But to me, Quinn Ewers is one of the safer picks, but also has the highest upside. The arm talent is crazy. We talked about him a little bit a couple episodes ago on this podcast, but he's still my favorite quarterback in this class. I think he's going to have a really great stretch down here.
Yeah, I think it's pretty. I would, at least it's arguable that he's been the best quarterback this year, at least for this draft class. Obviously, he's missing games here, and that's part of the injury history that I brought up. But play this year, he, to me, has been the best. I think we have a couple that are contending with that may have had some downer games here and there. But, and then you bring in Quinn not playing, that brings that up too. Obviously, he's taking this team back over, and I think he's going to cement himself as a top 3 pick.
I mean, I could argue outside of Jalen Monroe, who beat Georgia, I think that Quinn Ewers has the best win at Michigan. And that was at Michigan, right? Not at Georgia, too, for the Jalen Monroe area. And he looks so good in that game. He elevates his offense. I know there's some guys out there talking about Arch. Arch looks fine, but they're not winning an SEC title or going to a championship. Texas with Quinn can. And I think that's the difference that you have for those guys. I don't mind this. I probably would have went Quinn QB1 right at this point. And I know we're going to have some QBs maybe not in this first round that people get mad about, but I still think Quinn is the better player. I think Quinn right now, based on what he can do, what he did at Michigan, those type of things. Like I think this is a fine pick. It's really pick your poison there. I don't like quarterbacks, so I just keep moving the goalpost a little bit. But the Patriots don't need one. They could use some offensive line help. So I had the Patriots here at the 4th pick. I went back and forth whether to take Will Campbell or Teteroa McMillan. But I chose Teteroa McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona. I think that when you're looking at this, it's really going to come down to, I think Will could have been the pick. It just, hey, can they kind of protect Drake May? We're going to see how this line has not looked great this year. So that's one big thing. Jacoby Brissett is taking a beating. And I think what they're doing with Drake May is important. Don't put him in there yet. Don't let him just get destroyed. So Do they need a weapon? Yes. And I know Christian loves Jalen Polk, and I like him. Demario Douglas is like this guy out there that everybody seems to love. The production, though, they need weapons. They haven't had a legitimate weapon on this team for a while. I think Tetairoa McMillan gives them that, him and Drake May. Offensive line play is really bad, but I do think that there is some value in the second and third round of these drafts as we get a little bit more into this class. I think that you can find some guys in that range, and the Patriots haven't had very much luck drafting first round offensive lineman either. Like, I think that they've struggled there. I know Belichick's not there anymore, but give me the weapon for Drake May, and I think that that's where I kind of lean with this pick. I think they can kind of patchwork their offensive line and get some guys later if they need to, or in free agency as well. I know, Randy, would you have taken Will Campbell?
For the Patriots, I probably, but the offensive line has been hit or miss this year. Their wide receiving core has been miss.
Yeah.
So
I
think you had a good case of picking any of, I'd say arguably the top three here at the different positions of need. I think I have the same issue with the Broncos up next. So I think you made a good pick. Tet he is a size speed freak and would completely change the Patriots' trajectory at wide receiver from the last 2 decades.
This is the new age Bengals debate of Penei Sewell or Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I know.
Except it's a Megatron instead of a
right. And Will Campbell's not as good as Penei Sewell. So when you start to think about that, I think this pick actually makes sense. I think it's going to make some Patriots fans mad for what it's worth, Kevin. I'm glad you guys are on this journey with me at this stage in the year, by the way. Normally it's just me writing them and getting just crushed, but now you guys get to get killed by the comments as well. So I'm excited for that.
All right, Randy, where are you going?
Just validating you through text. So for the Broncos, I had the same issue as Kevin. Looking at Will Campbell, looking at Will Johnson, honestly, as well, and Luther Burden. I ended up with Will Campbell, the offensive tackle from LSU. I would say the best offensive tackle all around right now. Obviously, we have some time to finish out this year to see with the top 3 or 4 who shakes out the best, and then with obviously all the testing and everything. But right now, obviously, again, you could use a corner 2 along Pat Surtain to really cement this defense. You could use that wide receiver to really probably to get rid of Cortland Sutton or just really elevate this team past him in a year or so. But you are super expensive at offensive tackle right now. Garrett Bowles, I believe, is on his last year, and McGlinchey his contract is cuttable kind of after this year, but definitely after 2026. I think getting a guy to move on and really help clear up some space for the future, and arguably better at this age, I think is a good moving point for the Broncos, who need to continue to rebuild. I think you cement the offensive line here, get a little bit cheaper, and then you're able to move one of those guys for more capital or a weapon.
This is a good pick. I consistently go offensive tackle for the Broncos, and I think they're probably picking even higher than 5 when all is said and done. And I think Will Campbell is still probably the pick. But I will also say this is not a super top heavy offensive tackle class. So there will be a fight to get Will Campbell. Obviously, we didn't do trades in this one. I think that is a player that people will have to trade up for, because I do think he's kind of a tier above the rest of the group here.
Yeah, no, I think that that's the fun thing about this. You're going to see a lot of movement, I think, at the top, because there are a lot of guys that need to get in those tiers. I think even from a wide receiver position, there's tiers. Quarterback more than likely is going to be there. And even the Travis Hunter sweepstakes, I think that you're going to see trades and kind of go in there as well. All right, let's talk about Christian's other love crush here with the Raiders. So they're picking 6th. Who are you going with there?
I don't want to call him a love crush just yet, because he's not, I wouldn't even call him my QB2 at this moment. But I also think that what Cam Ward from Miami has done this year has justified maybe some first round hype. The arm talent's always been there. Kevin, you've always been a fan of Cam Ward, which is interesting. This is you're hesitant about his NFL outlook, and I think that that's justified. I think his decision making is still questionable. He threw a couple bad balls in this last game where they should have lost to Virginia Tech on a Friday night in front of the entire nation. That said, some of the throws are special, and we're talking off-platform work is elite. We're talking ball placement on like layered throws, hole shots. There's a ton of really good translatable stuff that it reminds me a lot of Michael Penix and what we saw last year. And so I think this is one of those guys that's super, super stock up. And the Raiders need a guy. They need a guy that can throw the football. And I think, they're trying to patchwork it with Gardner Minshew, and Aiden O'Connell clearly isn't better than Gardner Minshew, which I think is problematic. So Cam Ward's swagger also fits what the Raiders want to be. So to me, this is a good fit as well here for the Raiders at 6.
Yeah, Raiders have been trying to patchwork this with these offensive schemes with game managers, and it's very clear they need a game changer. And Cam Ward so far this year has shown that. Like you guys said, though, translatable to the NFL, I want to see a lot more this year and throughout the process and everything. However, it's been good so far. I would rather have Cam Ward than Shedeur. So,
yeah. So I think my thing with Cam and everybody that, I came onto him pretty early when he's at Washington State. I just and these guys know in the Discord, I have this gif of like the Groundhog's Day of like, I've seen this before. Oh my gosh. And there's those throws that he makes. Like it's the mistakes that he had against Virginia Tech popped up, right? And it's that good opponent. Hey, he tries to do too much, I think, at times. I think he's got a little hero ball in him from his time playing at FCS and then playing at Washington State. He did it. And you saw that consistently. He definitely makes the throws, but I love this pick because it's total Raiders pick. Like, it's just the Raiders. Like, that's what they have. Like, they're going to take the upshot. Like, hey, I'll take Cam Ward there. I think he fits that culture of the coaching staff, though. Like, and if you're looking at, like, who fits in, and maybe they have those guys that kind of, bridge him there and do those type of things. Like, he does fit. But, again, when we're thinking of weapons, how good of a fit is this? Him and Brock Bowers would be pretty damn good together. I think that, like, wherever they go, Brock's a great building piece. I don't think Devontae's going to be there for very much longer, or possibly, they might move him after the season if he does stay. But no, I'm big. I think there's a good pay. I like the fit. I think the fit is fun there for these guys and where they're at. All right, I'll jump over to my pick. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars, who's probably looking for a head coach. At some point, we might be saying that Doug Peterson is gone. And what does this look like? And that's going to change their draft trajectory, definitely. But I took best player available. I just took Will Johnson, cornerback from Michigan. Really, they do need help in their secondary. They've been banged up. There's a lot of injuries there. You've seen them consistently this year. They've gotten beat back there. I think part of it is their defensive line hasn't played amazing. I think that the lack of pressure there, maybe because they didn't take Aiden Hutchinson, as number 1 pick, but we won't go there today. But I do think that Will Johnson should probably be the pick here. Just best player available. Offensively, they have a lot of their guys. I think offensively, they, as long as they're healthy, they've looked okay. You could have addressed offensive line, but I think they need that playmaker on defense. I don't know the last time I've seen like a secondary playmaking guy for the Jaguars that really made a difference, could get one side of the field just closed off. I think Will Johnson can be that player for them, and I think that it's a good pick for them in terms of trying to reestablish themselves, especially in that division. They need cornerbacks. They're going to need that play in that division.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved Will Johnson for the Raiders. I think for the same reason he's a great fit for the Jaguars. Not only does he reinvent the secondary for you, but he is an elite talent, a game changer out there, a guy that can lock off a side. And from everything we've seen, he's a great leader for your defense. I think he can help shape this. Obviously, they haven't had that elite corner since Jalen Ramsey. I think he's in that caliber.
Some quick stats on him: 9 career interceptions, 7 pass breakups, and an NFL passer rating of 49.5 when targeted over his 3-year career, 2.5-ish year career at Michigan. So an elite player, just an elite player.
Yep, and hasn't shied away from elite competition either. So
exactly.
No.
Yep.
No.
Yeah.
And then speaking of elite competition, the Commanders, who, like you said with the Panthers, may be picking a little bit later than this as of right now. I went with Luther Burden, the 3rd wide receiver from Missouri. Definitely a game changer with speed and breaking tackles and just making a lot of plays out there. That's desperately what this Commanders offense needs. They're moving the ball. They're putting up points, and it's really, with one wide receiver, good running back play, and a quarterback playing out of his mind as a rookie. They need this second threat. Jahan Dotson wasn't it. They traded him to the Eagles. He's doing nothing over there except running routes. So I think Luther Burden can really be an absolute dynamic game changer for this team and really even elevate the whole offense. But Terry McLaurin, Jay Daniels, the whole lot, sky's the limit when you bring in this kind of talent to pair along with everyone else.
Yeah, I would say that the Commanders hit probably on offensive line in this draft and I think in this offseason. And so I think that gives them the freedom to do things like this at this point. I think Jaden Daniels has played better than I anticipated this early. I think they're doing a really good job in calling plays to his strengths, but he's been incredibly impressive. I think getting him a guy like Luther Burden is just, I mean, that would make for a really fun Commanders offense that should probably scare Kevin as a Cowboys fan, honestly.
I just don't want to play Jaden Daniels. He's giving me RG3 vibes again. Remember when RG3 was healthy and you're just like, man, I don't want to play against that guy in my division for 10 years. And now I'm like, damn it. They actually have a competent ownership group that seems like they hit on offensive line. They hired a great coach. And I've known Dan Quinn just from the Cowboy days. Hey, that has an identity. And damn it, Cliff Kingsbury. I gave him some crap.
He's doing a good job, man.
Yes, he's doing fine. Now, one thing that always happens with these guys, if he does good enough, he'll find another job. He's going to go find probably a job. He'll get hired or recycled again. But yeah, this fits really well for the Commanders. And I love that. If they had him with Scary Terry on the outside, Luther Burns inside out, a bit versatility. I mean, he can play in the slot as well. He's done that, I think, 60% his sophomore year. And so he does both of those things there. Great pick there. That was one of my favorite picks of the mock.
The other point I have with that is this Commanders defense is a long way off still, but the offense is working. And yes, it'd be nice to get a Will Johnson or a Mason Graham, more of a game changer, Benjamin Morrison here. But with the offense playing as well it is, and you have so many things to tick off with the defense still, I think getting that solidified piece of the offense to really catapult it while you allow more time to build the defense is a smart move for Dan Quinn.
Yep. All right, Christian, let's jump over to the next set of these. Number 9, the Colts. Where are you going with this one?
I went with Benjamin Morrison, the corner from Notre Dame. This is an interesting pick because I actually don't think he's been as good this year. But if you look at his first 2 years at Notre Dame, it was some more elite play at the cornerback position. This is actually a type of corner that I get hesitant on because of how much they hold and all the handsiness. We talked about it a couple episodes ago now about like Sauce Gardner scared me off. Benjamin Morrison is probably as physical as Sauce Gardner. And so I think that this is a sneaky area of need, though they played really, really well this last week against the Steelers. I think they played pretty well. They gave up a lot of yards, but they played pretty well against the Bears. They're overperforming, but I don't think the secondary has dudes that prevent you from taking a corner in the top 10. And Benjamin Morrison, to me, I think he's going to turn it around. I think this Notre Dame team started off a little iffy, and I think that there's a lot more ball to be played, and I think Benjamin Morrison will work his way into this top 15 area again.
Yeah, I know you hate the grabby corners, but they're the ones that are being the stars of the defense right now in the NFL.
No one's calling flags, Randy. I had to break it to you. No one is throwing those flags out there. Unless you play the Chiefs. You play the Chiefs, you're getting a flag call. So you just have to play like that.
Yeah. And when we just went over these guys, this was my pick for the corners for a reason. He is uber talented. Yeah, I think he could be playing, up another caliber this year, what we're seeing with Will Johnson. I still think he's in that running. I think with the Colts, they have a bunch of just the guys everywhere on defense, especially in the secondary. They have a lot of them, so they've been good. But I think getting that solidified number 1 would be really big for this defense.
Yeah.
All right. At 10, I figured you just take offensive line for the Bears. The way the season has gone for them already, when you're looking at just the grades are not great, right? When you're looking at even this last week's game, the worst performers, you're going through any of it, the top 3 are offensive linemen. Tevin Jenkins went out, but in his 11 snaps there, he had a 42.9 PFF grade. And he's really struggled in pass protection, 26.6 grade in pass protection there. That's not great when you have Caleb Williams that you needed to protect, your franchise quarterback that you took first overall. And I mean, I know it's left guard, right guard, center. Pretty much everybody on that offensive line has struggled. So really, this is just more of a, hey, I'm going to take Kelvin Banks Jr. I think that he's uber talented. We talked about him when we talked about our hog mollies up front. We talked about these guys that are that are very, very solid. He has really good upside for a team that you kind of bank on really traits at this point, though, with Kelvin Banks. There is some things, right? We talked about that on the show previously. Like, hey, he's got upside. You know, when you're looking at he's athletic, he can get to that second level. But I do think he can pass block. And I think that the Bears look at it and say, hey, we need to protect Caleb Williams. And it's pretty as much as simple as that. If they're sitting here at 10 or in that range and Will Campbell's off the board, I think Kelvin Banks should probably be their pick. Emory Jones is right there, some of these other guys, but I think offensive line has to be kind of the area you go to.
Yeah, my main, I guess, like pushback on that is I really want them to go out, trade for, spend up as however they can get a talented offensive line, and then use this pick to do what the Jets did this offseason, where they were able to take Olu Fashanu, despite paying a ton of guys and reinforcing that offensive line and having Olu being your sixth guy. That is a good way to build up a line, and you need to build up the line. This offensive line is gross. It is disgusting. It is a travesty that Ryan Poles let it roll out there in front of Caleb Williams. And I think, this has to be some type of help for Caleb Williams. I know that sounds crazy with what they did this last offseason, but like you have to get the big boys right. And I don't think they have yet. So good pick.
Speaking of figuring out that offensive line, Browns at 11, man, oh man, has it been rough this year. I do think there's an obvious Browns ticket quarterback, all that. Deshaun Watson looked okay for once this last week. The offensive line looked still terrible. A lot of injuries there, but I think it's truly showing losing the best offensive line coach in football. I think you need, Jack Conklin has not played in 3 years, really. I think getting a new right tackle and Emory Jones Jr., offensive tackle from LSU, is an enormous need. If Amari Cooper's gone, wide receiver is kind of a need. I think if you get any of these top tier defensive players left, I think that's, Rich getting richer on that side of the ball. But this offensive line was the strong point of this team for a while. Right now, it's the weak point. We need to figure it out. So Emory Jones can step in, good at both run and pass. I think that's just what this team needs. I do think healthy wise, this offensive line with him as an actual starter that's going to be out there every week should be a huge improvement.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at just overall, I mean, you guys know out there in Ohio, you guys know all about the Browns more than I do, but their pass protection's been really bad. I mean, when you look at what the Giants did to them and some of these other teams, like, as bad as Deshaun Watson has been and vice versa, you're tied to them unless Randy can somehow figure out to get another lawsuit going against him. They're not getting out of that contract. It is what it is. I mean, the way I look at it, I mean, they can move off of him, but that's going to create a kind of a locker room thing. The best thing to do is just you got to build that offensive line, and they need help there. I mean, they're probably going to be in the running for most different starting lineups at the offensive line, and that's just one of those things you can't have in the NFL. And I think Emory can definitely step in there. And with the way they built this roster, I mean, you're kind of left for that, right? I'd love to get Mason Graham here. That would have been a great, I think, a good pick, a luxury pick, and have that up front. But you have to take offensive line because they've missed, and if they continue to miss, that's a problem. Christian, where did you go with the Cardinals at 12?
Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan that has had an interesting season, because I think a lot of folks that look at PFF grades are like, wow, he's been rough this year because he's down in like the 70s or something like that. But then you watch the games and it's like, those people are crazy. Whoever's grading them are crazy. He has 4 sacks. He's dominating pretty much every matchup. Yes. Kevin's a Michigan fan and can attest, like, among a very, very talented defensive line, he is the guy that stands out. That means something. That means something to scouts. I think Mason Graham is probably the best pass rusher in this class at this point. It's coming from the interior, but I think he's the surest thing. And so I'm taking him to the Cardinals, where, like, I look at their offense. I look at the Cardinals roster and I don't see too many needs, quite frankly. Like, I know they're not a complete team. But like, you've got your wide receiver, you've got your tight end, you've got an okay offensive line, and this isn't really the spot to take one of those. So I'm just I know they paid some defensive tackles. I don't care. I'm taking one here at 12 because Mason Graham is that good.
Yeah, I mean, besides your quarterback, your wide receiver, tight end, you don't have any. You have guys everywhere that are being adequate starters or well above average. You don't have any elite players anywhere else. I think Mason Graham is a safe choice and an elite choice in the interior of that defensive line. They do run more of a 3-4 front. He can move all over on that front and be effective everywhere. And that helps with all the guys you paid. Now he's not forced to come in and be an absolute game changer day one, but he can rotate in with 4 guys, 5 guys, and everyone can really do really well. They've played above what I think people's expectations were for this defense already, and this is just a smart pick for them.
All right, let's jump over to, and this was a tough one for me. I had the Dolphins at 13. I almost took quarterback. I'll be honest with you. With Tua's kind of concussions, I know he says he's cleared the last time I saw it, like week 8. This offense needs you, Tua, because, oh my gosh, like the game that I'm watching right now, where I kind of have on my screen, Tyler Huntley just ain't it. You've seen kind of what they've been doing in this offense here. Tua definitely is part of that, but then they're going to have to bring in insurance. I think that at some point, this is the perfect draft. Could you imagine like Jalen Milroe possibly in the 2nd or 3rd round, like that Jalen Hurts type Carson Wentz kind of area that happened a few years ago? Like I do think that, but I took Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. Really, to me, this is just, I like taking best player available and looking at the board, just like, hey, who can be that impact guy for them? And I think that he might say that it's kind of a luxury pick because it's a safety and it's early. But they could have a need, right? Javon Holland, Jordan Poyer, last year of their contracts, you know, when you're looking at what they could provide in that back end of the safety, kind of that game-changing player in that division. I do think that he's kind of, Malachi can make plays all over across the field. Like if you have a good defensive coordinator, it would put him in positions to succeed. I think that he's good in the slot. I think he's good. He can coverage. I think he can come up and make a tackle. There's things that he does well, and he's like that positionless guy out there. Yes, the quarterback thing makes it tough, though, because if Tua doesn't come, if he comes back, gets injured, or whatever the case may be, I do think they might have to go quarterback here. I almost took a quarterback here, but I'll take Starks as that upside best play available.
Yeah, he's one of the better players in this class. I think you talk about Malachi Starks the way you probably would have been talking about Kyle Hamilton and that same lead up to the draft. I think a lot of people are going to get hung up on this pick based on the fact that Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams made Malachi Starks look pretty pedestrian, but I think that was 2 elite players doing elite things. Malachi Starks missed 4 tackles against Alabama this last week. He hadn't missed a tackle the entire season before that. So to me, Starks is a good pick. It's a good fit too, because I think this defense certainly needs some juice. They've played above their weight, but I think the defense is where they need to invest. So bring on Starks. I like it.
Yeah, I agree with the quarterback though, but like Kevin said, there's a few maybe they can take in the 2nd that I think there's multiple quarterbacks who could fit well with this coaching staff and scheme. For the Rams at 14 though, this was a hard pick for me just because, again, you have all these offensive weapons. The offensive linemen that I really love for them are probably taken. Now that's the best need. I went with James Pierce Jr., edge from Tennessee, a guy that was touted as the number 1 overall pick going into this year, and he's been a little disappointing so far. But with this team, with Byron Young and, you know, everyone they have there, I know you spent your first 2 rounds this last draft in Jared Verse and Braden Fisk to beef up that D-line. I think Pierce helps you unlock yet another aspect of this and gives you 3 absolute intense edge rushers from the outside linebacker position, and also allowing Jared Verse to go inside when needed as the more 3-tech D-tackle with Fisk to absolutely really change this defensive line for the better. Again, maybe there's other positions and needs for them, but I didn't love fits or reaching at this pick. I think Pierce falling to them would be a stellar fit.
The Rams are in such a weird spot as a franchise right now. They just can't stay healthy. Like, I think that's the big thing. And then where you have Stafford, someone saying that he's kind of possibly retire. I think this is a perfect trade back opportunity more than likely for the Rams. Like, if they were sitting here, they'd probably like, I don't know who I'm taking here. I love the upside, though, at the defensive line. I mean, anytime you can take an edge guy or someone that can kind of be versatile, too. I think he's had a rough year, though. Like, he's kind of had one of those things where I could see him maybe possibly coming back, too. If he doesn't take off there, even though he had the hype. But it fits his team, fits his defensive line. I think it fits his defense too. And it could give him the direction. If they're going to rebuild, you rebuild on the defensive side. You kind of work your way through there. You find those pieces, and then you maybe draft a quarterback in 26, right? If you're kind of taking some lumps. Imagine Nico back there. Some of these guys, Arch Manning, like that would be fun in that area there. All right, Christian, you're at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 15. Where are you leaning?
First, I want to say the Rams should just draft Drew Aller and just not do any of that.
Yeah, I thought
They should let him sit for a year. So for the Bucks, this is an interesting one because I think drafting based on need is never a really good thing to do. But in a draft where a lot of folks that are plugged in with NFL scouts are acknowledging that there are only 15 to 19 first round grades at this point, and so it's kind of a light draft at the top, and so I think we could see some wackiness. Here with the Bucks, I'm going Deontay Lawson, the linebacker from Alabama, and getting a little bit wacky. And the reason I'm getting a little bit wacky is Lavonte David's like 75 years old and he's playing like it. KJ Britt is also like 75 years old and he's always played like it, except for like a couple pop years where he looked pretty good. Deontay Lawson, I know Jahad Campbell is getting a lot of hype, but when I watch the Alabama film, Deontay Lawson, to me, is the guy that's going to translate better to the NFL level. I think that he is good in coverage. He's good coming downhill. We talked about this, recently on another episode. But to me, this is exactly what you wanted Devin White to be. And so I think if Lawson declares, he's I believe a true junior. That might be incorrect. He might be a redshirt junior. But if Lawson declares, I think he has a good shot to make it into the first because of the way the NFL offenses are adapting, NFL defenses are adapting, and the way that he plays is just exciting. He got a sack on Carson Beck. He was making plays all over the field. To me, it's tough taking a linebacker top 15. Don't get me wrong. I don't like doing it either, but there's not a whole lot that makes sense to me for the Bucks, and linebackers certainly a need.
They're going to kill you in the comments. I'm so excited for this. I'm so excited to watch what they do to you on this one.
I know. I'm ready.
In fairness, though, they've invested heavily on the defensive line the last few years. Right. You've kind of reinvented your secondary. Unless you're taking a corner you truly feel could be like a standout outside lockdown corner here, which we kind of already took the top three. It's just not a perfect fit. So if Lawson is your best defensive player, and this room desperately needs a new look at the linebacker position, what they wanted, like you said, Devin White to take over for David, so they could have not paid him this year and paid Devin White. That was the whole point of the draft, and it didn't work. So I think getting another shot at that here is smart. I think you should double tap that as well. But like you said, he could do everything that they really need, and linebacker is the biggest need for this defense easily.
Yeah, Zion McCollum has been an elite corner this year, and Jamel Dean is having a down year and is still really good. So it's like I don't see a whole lot there. They're a good trade back opportunity as well.
Yeah, well, we could probably say that for every single team right now as we go through the next 15. But we're gonna keep doing it. We're putting that out there. We could trade back. That way we can say, well, we were gonna trade back, but we couldn't when we have a crappy pick and someone yells at us on there. But I'm gonna finish out this top 16 with the Chargers. And really, when you're looking at the Chargers, I almost went wide receiver, but I know Harbaugh's not taking a wide receiver. Like, I really just think when you're looking at what his team needs, and to me, it really comes down to some type of interior defender. If Graham was still there, I think that he would love to get Mason Graham on the Chargers there from Michigan. But I do think edge plays a role in this too. Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa played kind of well, but Bosa, hip injuries have been a thing for him. Max on the last year of his deal. They really need to kind of revamp that edge. And Nick Gordon's playing pretty well for Texas A&M right now. And when you're looking at just overall, already has 3 sacks on the season, 9 hurries already through 5 games. Again, when you're looking at run defense grade, 76.0, pretty good. Pass rushing grade is there. I mean, he can kind of do both. At Purdue, he was one of the best pass rushers in college football in 2023 at 90.9 PFF grade there. And I think this is a hardball pick in this defense. I think he fits well, can be that edge guy, and in a division that you need to get after the quarterback. I mean, you're playing against, you just say Pat Mahomes. We won't talk about the Broncos situation of the Raiders, but you're playing Pat Mahomes. You got to get after him. You got to create that pressure. So I'll take the edge guy that I think is maybe the best player left on the board. I know the next guy that Randy's going to talk about too is pretty close.
Yeah, I think this is a good pick. Scorton is a strange individual in that he's 285 pounds and he bends pretty well. And so I think that's strange and a good thing, a very good thing. So this does, they do need to get younger at this position. I don't really know where they'll lean. I think, I think there's a fun one that we take a little bit later in Ashton Genty that I think could be a lot of fun, but they seem to really like J.K. Dobbins and hopefully another year removed from injury. They don't really need a running back. So I like this pick. I think he is a top 15, 16 type of pick. And quite frankly, if the Bucs needed an edge rusher, I would have taken him there.
All right, let's go, Randy. 17 Seahawks. Where are you leaning?
Yeah, I'm going with Michael Williams, edge from Georgia. This edge room has some guys, but no one's really standing out to me. Boye Mafe and Wosu, Hall, Draymond Jones. No one. They don't have the guy to me as of right now. I think this gives you another chance at it, and a guy that is actually fully talented. It's not usually the Seahawks, just this crazy upside pick that they tend to do at the edge rusher position. I do think he gives you the size, the speed, the effort that I think this edge rushing room desperately needs. And again, he'd be a 4th or 5th guy. Obviously, I think he'd start on this team, but it's another fit where he's not just destined to have to be the absolute guy day one, but I do think he can help change this defense for the better. You have these elite athletes in the secondary. You've reinvented your linebacking room. I do think probably need a little bit more there as well, but you've paid the interior. And you just drafted Byron Murphy last year. Getting a dominant edge possibly, I think, is the next big need for this team. And what they've done with the offensive line and everything else, I mean, I'd say edge rusher is probably their biggest need.
Yeah, I mean, going through it, they probably need some type of linebacker, off-ball linebacker, or something there, but they don't need that in the first. We're not Christian here drafting. Then tight end, somewhere over there, maybe guard play, whatever. But I think you hit it on the head. Like, Mike McDonald is a very, very solid defensive guy, and if we're him to get Michael Williams and be like, yeah, that's my guy, and kind of build around him, that'd be special for Seattle. I mean, I would argue you may want to take a quarterback because Geno just ain't it. I don't know who needs to hear this. I've been saying it for years. Like, at some point, they're going to have to take somebody. But I do think Michael Williams would be fun in Mike McDonald's defense, and I think he would just add to it. I mean, you're talking like, I know Legion of Boom and all those type of things we hear about. That would be a special defense if this pick hit with Michael Williams being there. Now, he hasn't had a great year this year. He's been banged up. He's just been injured. Against Alabama, he wasn't 100%. He probably was like 65%. But if you get the full healthy guy, Seattle defense, that would be fun here. And we're kind of going through an edge run right now. And Christian picked an edge as well, right, with Atlanta at 18. So who do you lean with here?
Yeah, for the Falcons, I'm going Abdul Carter, the edge out of Penn State. If you guys listened to maybe last week's show, I think it was, he's not even my favorite edge rusher from Penn State, but
what is this fraud? What is this fraud pick we got going on right now?
Listen, this is, my evaluations and the NFL's evaluation of these players might be a little bit different, and I can acknowledge that. However, Abdul Carter also had an incredible coming out performance against the Illini this last week, where he was dominant in both coverage. He was getting to the quarterback. He was in the backfield every snap. That's the growth that we needed to see from Abdul Carter as an edge rusher. And when you look at what the Falcons need, they have 4 total sacks this year, and 2 of them are from Matthew Judon, who's also 75 years old. It's kind of a theme here. And the other 2 are from Grady Jarrett. And that's just sacks among their defensive linemen and edge rushers and linebackers. So I think they're probably ready to, not roll out James Smith-Williams for 140 snaps and Lorenzo Carter and guys like this that just aren't really generating pressure or landing sacks. Abdul Carter kind of fixes that pretty quickly. I know that's not a sexy pick with Darnell Mooney as your wide receiver 2, but it's they don't care about stats. That's what they said. So they're just going to win games, and I think Abdul Carter might give them the best shot to win games.
Yep, they should have went edge rusher at 8. They didn't. They went with the backup quarterback, so we're rectifying that at 18. I think it's a good fit. It's the type of edge rusher we think they like the most as well, more of a speed, bendy outside guy instead of, more of a run stuffer that has that bend and everything else. So we were debating that last year with Verse and every other edge rusher felt like. So I think Carter fits what the supposed fit is. I do think it'll be interesting if they do take edge rusher first round, who they go for out of this group. But again, we've had a run, so Carter is what the type that's left. So I do think he's a fun fit and something that would help catapult this defense because it desperately needs pressure.
I don't understand, and I'll move on to my pick in a second. But Atlanta, you've needed an edge guy, like a legitimate edge guy, for so many years, and you just at a certain point, like when you're looking at even this year, early in the season, their PFF pass grade, rushing grade is 51.0. I mean, that's terrible, right? When you're thinking about that, Braylon Trice, he tore his ACL preseason. We know that. Go get a dude, please. Like the Kirk Cousins window. I don't even know if it's a window. It's kind of like a. Oh man, I don't even know how we fit it in there. Like if you're watching on YouTube, that little sliver of thing behind Randy right there, that's essentially the window. Like get him an edge rusher, like get him someone there. I went at 19. I picked, with the Steelers, Pittsburgh Steelers here. Really with them, I think that in my opinion, I think Justin Fields has kind of earned that job. I do think they're probably going to get him a contract with how he's playing if he continues to go out there. He's done a really good job this year. One thing that I think they do need, while they could have maybe go offensive line here, I think they've done great. They've gotten some good picks there. I know Broderick's kind of struggling right now. I'm going to go wide receiver. I think that I like Roman Wilson as a Michigan guy, but I looked at it and I said, you know what would fit pretty well with George Pickens? I think Isaiah Bond does. I think Isaiah Bond from Texas is one of those players that can kind of be versatile. They can play in a slot as well. I don't think he's pinpointed just to one area. I think him and Pickens could be deep threats here. And I think his skill set fits Fields too. I think Fields can push the ball down. I think that they're opening it up more this season for him and his coaching staff. So give me that best player, next tier wide receiver. Right now it's Bond to me. It could be someone else. Maybe they fall in love with someone else in that offense. But Isaiah Bond feels like a Steeler as well. He does a little things. He's got that motor. You like what he's been able to do, like run blocking. There's a lot of things he does well. And so I'll take Isaiah Bond here.
Yeah, this is the position group most devoid of talent on this team. And I think, I think Emeka Egbuka at Ohio State's making a push to be that third wide receiver. I also think, speaking of, I also have the same belief that Justin Fields is going to be their quarterback next year. And so if you have that, I think Isaiah Bond fits what he does a little bit better. You can then, Egbuka's been best out of the slot. So you can put Roman Wilson in the slot. And so you have some dynamic options. Calvin Austin's still there. He's been good at times. But outside of that, they certainly need a wide receiver.
Yeah, they desperately need Roman Wilson to get back because they need something
he's been
else.
Healthy.
They need another.
He's getting healthy, and they're like, you know what? We're not going to debut him this week. And it's like, you probably should.
They need someone who can get open in the middle of the field and just be a slot guy and just get some separation. They really need that desperately. And George Pickens, get your head out of your ass, please. Like, sorry, YouTube, you get there, but just play better. Like, he's a talented guy, but he can't do that there. All right, Saints, New Orleans Saints, man. They were flying out of the gates early in the season. They're at 20 here. Where are we going with this one?
Yeah, the offensive line has probably played above what it should so far, but it's starting to come crashing back down to reality. I'm going with Jonah Savaiinaea, offensive tackle from Arizona. Offensive line, I think, is the best way to describe it. I think for this team, he just gives you the best chance. He's easily going to be a starter at tackle or guard for you next year. You just need bodies on this team and somebody that can be a consistent player for you. This guy started for years now. He's continually improving in all aspects. There's a little bit of stuff that needs to be cleaned up, but he's already, I'd argue, the second or third best lineman right now in college if he was on the Saints. So I think after a whole year or two, he might be their best if they draft him here at 20. This line is not built to succeed next year at all. It needs to be completely retooled.
Yeah, this is an easy pick. This is a very good fit for them. I think when you're looking at what they have down there, I mean, Lucas Patrick is also on his last deal, or last year of his deal, pending free agent too. Yeah, this is solid. I got a lot to say about this. They're going to have to build inside out, and Jonah's a great pick. I think upside player that can really fit this line there for them. All right, let's go to 21. Vikings, Minnesota Vikings, Super Bowl bound Minnesota Vikings. I got to give Sam Darnold some love out there. They're playing really well. Where are we leaning with the Vikings pick?
Well, because Sammy Super Bowl is going to take them to the Super Bowl, and JJ McCarthy is going to take over next year, and Jordan Addison showed out this week, and they still have Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson, and this offense looks really good. Defenses looked really good too, but it hasn't been on the back of really good corner play, and so I'm going Siobhan Revel Jr., the corner from East Carolina that unfortunately is out for the season at this point, but in his limited snaps at the beginning of this year, it was a lot of the same. He's a physical corner that does the dirty work, it's, if Brian Flores is still there, I might be a little bit shocked. I think there's a chance he gets a head coaching job again. That said, if he doesn't and he's still there, Revel is the exact guy that he would want in his secondary, where you've got kind of a bully ball type of corner with a ton of length. He's 6'3", almost 200 pounds. So I think that he's still going to be a first rounder, even if he can't test, just based on the film, because the film is that good. But yeah, I mean, the Vikings, the defense is playing well. But man, if you can't, you can maybe name 3 players on that defense, and that's about it. It's pretty rough as far as star power goes.
And they're all old. So yeah, getting a young corner, all the corner and secondary picks really just haven't worked out. So they need somebody. I do think the competitive toughness and just the tape we've seen so far, he should be a good fit. I will say, we talked about Cliff Kingsbury and now Flores get new jobs. I don't know, man. I think we've seen it. I think they're stellar coordinators and bad head coaches. And after what we've heard from Tua this offseason about Flores, I don't know if he gets another shot there with a young quarterback at least. But as a defensive coordinator, dude's doing great. And I think getting a top tier, at least I think he can at least be a corner 2 for you right off the bat. I do think he has that upside for you to be a corner 1. And that would be an incredible addition to this defense.
I think some coaches are just better as coordinators too. I think one of those things is sometimes guys are just better as coordinators, find your role. And that's kind of how you could look at him. I mean, if that's the possibility there. At 22, we got the Bengals. Had a weird start to the season. We're going to see kind of where they're at. This is Super Bowl odds, so they're a little higher than maybe what the record states. And really, surprisingly, they got a lot of needs. When you're looking at Cincinnati and kind of where they could go, I think interior defensive line, I think edge, wide receiver, possibly if Higgins leaves. I think they kind of like what they have there. But I took Danny Dennis-Sutton, edge rusher from Penn State, just to kind of give them that player on the defensive line and create pressure. I think that when you're looking at just what they got out there right now, Trey Hendrickson has looked really well, but Sam Hubbard, Joseph Asai, they haven't looked great. I think getting that pressure matters, especially in that division. And I'll take just an upside play at the edge. I do think there's kind of a drop off based on ceiling around this area when you're looking at just the defensive side. I like a few of these guys, but I'll take Danny Dennis-Sutton here, and just also to take him before Christian has a possibility of taking him too.
Yeah, which I would have enjoyed doing. He's one of my favorite players to watch. The sack production hasn't quite gotten there this year, just 1 sack, but the hurries and the quarterback hits are all there. He's affecting pockets. I think some NFL team, when he tests a little better than people anticipate, I think some NFL team is going to take a shot in this range of the draft. And the Bengals, it makes total sense that edge rush room. There's a reason why Trey Hendrickson is getting double teamed more than every single edge rusher in the NFL, when he's been on the field. So they need another guy. Hopefully Dennis Sutton could be that type of guy for them.
And he can go inside and out too, so it'll be a good fit. Cowboys at 23, going to do the flashy place. We're going to take I'm just kidding. We're going to go Ashton Jeanty, running back from Boise State, best running back in college football right now. Going to be chasing Barry Sanders for his record. Dude's been electric. He's making everyone miss. He's making plays everywhere against, the Mountain West competition and better competition as well. He almost single-handedly carried this team to a win over Oregon. He is absolutely electric everywhere on the field. He's a 3-down capable back, great contact balance. He is probably the Ohio State running backs are in contention for first round. There's 1 or 2 other ones, but for right now, Ashton Jeanty is a first-round running back, and the Cowboys running back room is laughable. So getting a new, fresh take in that room to help really put this offense to where it needs to be to really win football games again, I think it's a solid fit.
How dare you call running back 1 CeeDee Lamb laughable? Okay. You know what? I don't know what I saw back there, but I love that he's getting some run back there. As a resident Cowboys fan, the thing I can say about this pick is I don't hate it. I think it's definitely the Cowboys move there. I would love for them to get a freaking interior defensive lineman. Like Deontay Walker would have been a great pick, I think. But the Cowboys can't draft D linemen. or the interior defensive lineman for sure. We miss on all those guys, and it just is Taco. Oh God, Taco! I still have nightmares about you. So I think Ashton does fit. I think in this offense they need a guy. I mean, they need a running back, and if Ashton Jeanty fits there, I'll be buying an Ashton Jeanty Cowboys jersey. That's how I roll. I mean, I don't know how many games we're going to win defensively, but we will definitely score some points. So I think it's of need, and they'll pick there. All right, 24 Packers. Where are you going, Christian?
A quick note on Ashton Jeanty. His 97.2 PFF run grade is I'm clicking through. I'm trying to find someone that has a better one, and I can't find anyone. So as of right now, he's having the greatest season in a decade at least. So for the Packers, Deion Walker, defensive tackle. The Packers always just draft defensive linemen and sometimes take offensive linemen, but really they don't do anything else in the draft. And so I'm looking at this defensive tackle room and I say, okay, Kenny Clark has been pretty good as usual, but Kenny Clark's getting old. And when you talk about what Walker can bring either next to Kenny Clark or in place of Kenny Clark, because he's that freaky in terms of he's got the size to be a nose tech, but he's got the pass rush ability and kind of like a bag to go rush the passer at just an absurd height and weight. It doesn't make sense what Walker does on the football field. So I'm taking the defensive tackle out of Kentucky. I think probably if we redo this, which we will, we'll have a lot more mock drafts. So that's why you should check out the podcast. But if we redo this, I'd probably take him a little bit earlier too, because I think he's going to test well. And then people are going to be like, oh, wow, this is like a top 15, top 16 pick.
He looked great this last week against Ole Miss. They couldn't block him. And this is a total Packers pick here. I could see him going top 20 for sure. Like when you're looking at just the board and where he's at right now, if he continues that play, that's a great pick. I think the Packers get that there. All right, we're going to wrap up the last picks here, kind of go through them. Gosh, I wish I wouldn't have picked this kid for the Jets because I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but New York Jets at 25, Princely
Umami Allen.
Perfect. That's why we do the show together. Edge rusher out of Ole Miss. He's talented. I know he's a fifth-year guy, and he was at Florida, and he's kind of bounced around a little bit, and I know that there's some question marks there. But when his motor is on, he is one of the most athletic freaks that you're going to see out on the football field. So I took him for the Jets here. I could have probably took quarterback after freaking losing 10-9 to the Broncos this last week, Jets. I don't know what the hell that's going on there. So I almost did kind of lean quarterback, but I took Princely here, edge guy. They definitely need something there on the defensive side there. But the Jets are a mess. They're just a mess right now. I don't know what to say about the Jets too much there. All right, let's go to 26. Randy, where are you going with the Texans?
I went with Tyleik Williams, D-Top from Ohio State. I do think there's some room to grow here already still, but he has really propelled this defensive line for the Buckeyes from even what it was last year. He's just kept growing. It's been a good game changer for him. The Texans have their edge rushers. In theory, they have their corners, their safeties, kind of their linebackers. I think the interior defensive line needs some tune-up. Offensive line, sure. I think you could throw a little bit more in there, maybe a running back of the future. But right here, I think I get the best available defensive lineman to where you can propel this for the next step.
Yeah, 27 for the Ravens. I'm taking Tyler Booker, the guard from Alabama. I want to be honest though. I don't think Booker is the best guard per se in this class, but I think his athleticism is going to stand out to NFL teams. And the Ravens certainly need some interior offensive line help. Obviously, we saw some improvement in that group against the Bills this week, but it's still not a consistent thing where they're confident in rolling everyone out. So to me, you get the athletic freak that can go. Watching him. I forget. I think it was the UCF game where he was just lining up his blocks like 20 yards downfield. It's a special type of player. He's a first round guard to me, and I think there's a few of them. We didn't quite get there, but Booker is a great fit for the Ravens.
Yeah, no, they're good there. At 28, we got the Detroit Lions. I'm taking, I guess I just like Ole Miss players, even though they lost to Kentucky, but I'm taking defensive tackle Walter Nolan, 6'4", 290. He's got intangibles for days. Like when you're looking at him and you're saying, hey, what can he do? He can stop the run. I think he's very good interior lineman, especially getting after the passer, creates hurries, very, very fluid, has good power, strength, really violent hands when you watch him on the interior there. Now, the one thing Walter needs, though, is he needs a very good coaching staff around him to get the most out of him. I think that's the key for him to unlock that potential. Well, you know what coaching staff likes to bite kneecaps and just destroy people? The Detroit Lions. And he's a Lions pick through and through because I think that staff can get to him, get the intangible stuff going. And I think he'd be fantastic on that defensive line. I mean, him and Hutchinson, everybody out there on that crew, that's a Lions pick through and through. At 28, 29, which might be a little high for the Philadelphia Eagles based on what they've been playing like. But where are you leaning here at 29?
Yeah, I went with Jack Sawyer. Edge rush from Ohio State, back-to-back Ohio State players for me. It's fun there. But I do think he can give you a bit of that 3-4 defensive end as well as the edge rusher. I think he's consistent in the run stuffing. I think he can set the edge really well. And he's showing more and more ability to get to the passer. I think he's a complete defensive end. And this team really, Bryce Huff, Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith hasn't really been everything you'd want. I really think you need another investment to that edge group to really align with what you've invested in these monsters at defensive tackle, which you invested your first 2 picks in corners last year. Yeah, you could use another wide receiver, maybe another guard. Maybe if Booker was there, I think that's the pick here. But Sawyer, for me, gives you best of both worlds for that defensive line.
Mm-hmm. It's a great pick. Fantastic pick. Another great pick, the one that I made here at 30 for the Buffalo Bills, Kenneth Grant. You went back-to-back Ohio State, Randy, and then Kevin and I went back-to-back Michigan here. Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle from Michigan. I said for Mason Graham, Mason Graham stands out among a really good defensive line, and that includes Kenneth Grant, who, with being his running mate, I think this entire defensive line is good. You can make a case for the edge rusher as well, but Kenneth Grant, to me, kind of fits what the Bills need right now. I think you can make an argument that they need to take another wide receiver, but they're not going to because they just took Keon Coleman. So Kenneth Grant, come on down. Let's join the Bills Super Bowl train.
The Bills Super Bowl train. I don't know if you watched the Ravens game, but I hate to break it to you there.
That's right.
Yeah. What I'll do at 31, I got the San Francisco 49ers. And I think, I originally got wide receiver here, but I was like, nah, I'm going to put Colson Loveland down because I got to get my Michigan man in the first round here, tight end. And I do think the Kittle days are kind of over. I think they might have been over. He just can't stay healthy. And I think that when you're looking at this team, I think cornerback's a need. I think offensive tackle's a need. I think maybe even guard is a need there. But I do think, Loveland gives them a piece in this offense that I really like. And, Debo can't stay healthy as well. They have Ayuk to that contract now. They gave it to him. So now you kind of live with it. I think Loveland gives them that second piece if they want to kind of be versatile, especially with Shanahan. I think he can do a good job with the tight end, especially a piece like him that can be out in the slot, that can be in line too. I don't think he's a terrible blocker. I think he can learn that. He does a pretty good job in Michigan. There's a reason why Michigan has one of the best rushing offenses, and Loveland was in line a lot there. Like even last year with Blake Corum, this year has done it with Cleo Mullings when he's been healthy. So I think San Francisco is a fun spot for Colson Loveland. I think from a dynasty standpoint, you'd be excited about it too. So I'll take Loveland there at San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, and to finish it off with the Chiefs for the three-peat in this kind of mock, I went with Dante Corleone, defensive tackle from Cincinnati. Just a consistent player. This Chiefs defense has been good. Again, you've lost major positions like corner, and you're reinventing the wheel there. But D-tackle-wise, you are losing 4 out of your 5 this offseason. You just have Chris Jones. And I believe you're also losing Mike Dan at edge rusher. So using your first couple round picks to reinvest in this D-line for the future, you've invested in edge rusher and Carl Optis, and I think it's Felix Ndik Uzama. So getting another interior guy to really help with Chris Jones, a guy that can help stuff the run and give you some pass rush upside, I think Corleone's a good fit to help drive this to the future.
All right. Wraps up the first mock here at the Quarters Podcast. First one we've done. There's going to be definitely changes as we go through. We're going to rib a little Carson Beck, probably propaganda at some point, making fun of Randy. But since Randy's the more positive one of the group here, I want to give him the shot to go through and pick his favorite pick. You can't pick your own though. You're not allowed to pick your own. We don't do that here on this show. So of the other picks here on the board, what would you say is like your favorite pick fit that you see?
You're killing me with it on my own.
You can take your own if you want.
No, I would say Isaiah Bond for the Steelers. I do think, like we've said, he gives you other dimensions and aspects of this offense with Justin Fields and his arm and accuracy deep that he hasn't had since Ohio State. You have Pickens on the outside, Roman Wilson also on the inside. You have Freiermuth with the other running backs, and now you have a guy that does everything and is one of the fastest receivers in football and can give you that deep shot. I think it's a phenomenal fit to help just really cement Fields as a starter and cement this offense to bring it back to what it was in the past, which it hasn't been for 5 years now?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I'll take that. Your favorite pick was one of mine. All right, Christian, you're the negative guy. So you tell me your least favorite pick. You can pick your own for this one. I'll allow that. So what was your least favorite pick of the mock?
Well, I think it's kind of like not that fair because Randy talked himself out of it, but Carson Beck at 2 is probably my least favorite just right now. I'm sorry. I just think when you look at this quarterback class, when you look at this quarterback class, I think you still have a ton of questions that have not yet been answered. And so I don't think Beck has done a good job in his time on the field in answering them. We mentioned it briefly. We don't have Shedeur Sanders in this mock, and I still think that's right. I think maybe we went a little heavy. We only put 3 quarterbacks in this mock, and we might be heavy.
We are
just based. Yeah, I think maybe we're getting 2 quarterbacks this year, and I think we might have fit the 2 in Ewers and Cam Ward. So you'll see more mocks with more, so I'm not blaming Randy too much for going quarterback to the Giants because God knows they need one. You should have gone with your gut and taken Quinn Ewers, dude. That's your QB1.
Yeah, but
fight
it's
on.
The Giants. They're not going to make the right call. So
hey, that's fair. I take it all back.
They're going to go save.
I didn't know we were role playing. If we were role playing, we could have some fun with this one. The Jaguars, Will Johnson, Balky would have taken some edge guy that I haven't even heard of yet.
If we were role playing, I would have taken Shedeur for the Cowboys.
Oh, okay, we're not role playing anymore off that one. Going there I swear to God, we're done. If Shedeur somehow finds himself on the Cowboys, I will not be a fan of NFL. I'm just going to be that Rob Schneider meme of just NFL, just watching Red Zone every weekend. That's pretty much my life. So that is it. That wraps up the Quarters podcast. If you watch it on YouTube and you've been hanging around, download the podcast. We're getting in there draft episodes every week. We talk about prospects. We just started it, and we appreciate all the love you've been getting. But if you listen on the podcast, make sure you leave us a review. Give us a comment. Let us know how we're doing, how you liking the pod. This is our first mock draft. We're going to be doing a bunch more as we go through. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch up with you on the next one.